I was bleeding through my dress at my family's 50th anniversary reunion when my sister Carol looked at me and said the words that would destroy our family forever. But before I tell you what she said, you need to understand something about the Parker family reunions. We don't do anything small. When 150 relatives gather at my grandparents' farm in Tennessee, it becomes an event that everyone talks about for years. This year, they'd be talking about it for all the wrong reasons. My name is Bethany Parker Coleman, though I dropped the Coleman part after my divorce 2 years ago. I'm 32, a single mother, and according to my family, the biggest disappointment in 3 generations of successful Parkers. That morning, as I helped my 7-year-old son, Wyatt, into his little button-up shirt, I thought maybe today would be different. Maybe today I'd finally have good news that would make my mother smile at me the way she smiled at my sister. "Mom, do I have to wear this?" Wyatt asked, fidgeting with his collar. "It's scratchy." "Just for today, baby. You know how Grandma Diane gets about looking presentable." Wyatt's face scrunched up in that way that made him look exactly like his father, minus the disappointment and anger. "Grandma Diane doesn't like anything I do anyway." I knelt down to his level, straightening his collar. "That's not true." "She said I was too skinny last time, and that my hair was too long, and that I asked too many questions." He wasn't wrong. My mother, Diane Parker, had opinions about everything, especially when it came to me and my choices. At 58, she still looked like she stepped out of a Southern Living magazine, with her perfectly styled blonde hair and her designer sundresses. She had 2 daughters, but only one she was proud of, and that wasn't me. The drive to the farm took 3 hours from Nashville. Wyatt spent most of it reading his dinosaur book, occasionally sharing facts that 7-year-olds find fascinating. "Mom, did you know that a T-Rex's bite could crush a car?" "That's pretty strong, buddy." "Stronger than Aunt Carol?" I almost laughed. "What makes you ask about Aunt Carol?" "She always brags about being strong. Last time she said she could lift more than Dad could." Carol. My older sister by 3 years, the golden child who could do no wrong. While I was struggling to make ends meet as a medical billing specialist, Carol was selling $1-million homes in Franklin, driving her white Mercedes and posting about her perfect life on Instagram. The same sister who'd called me 3 weeks ago when I'd made the mistake of telling her my news. "Pregnant? Again? Bethany, you can barely handle Wyatt. Who's the father? Please tell me it's someone stable this time." I'd hung up on her that day, but you can't hang up on someone at a family reunion. As we pulled into the long gravel driveway of Parker Farm, I saw the white tents already set up across the massive front lawn. Cars lined, both sides of the drive, everything from beat-up trucks to shiny BMWs. The Parker family had all types, from farmers to lawyers, but somehow I'd managed to become the only failure anyone talked about. "There's a lot of people," Wyatt observed, his voice getting smaller. "Stay close to me, okay? We'll set up the dessert table and then find a quiet spot." I'd made 12 pies the night before. Pecan, chess, and chocolate bourbon. Baking was the one thing even my mother couldn't criticize. My grandmother had taught me before she passed 5 years ago, the only person in the family who'd ever made me feel like I was enough. Russell, my father, was the first to greet us, helping carry the pies while avoiding real conversation. At 60, he'd perfected the art of being present but not involved, letting my mother's voice be the only one that mattered in our family. "Bethany, good, you're here. The dessert table's over there. Carol's already set up the main food tent. She had it catered from that fancy place in Brentwood. Must have cost a fortune, but you know Carol, nothing but the best." There it was, the first comparison. Not even 5 minutes in. That's when I saw her. Carol stood by the main tent directing relatives like she was conducting an orchestra. Her sundress probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Her blonde hair was freshly highlighted. Her makeup was flawless despite the Tennessee humidity. When she saw me, her smile was sharp as glass. "Bethany, finally, I was worried you'd gotten lost. Oh, sweetie, you look tired. Are you feeling okay?" Before I could answer, she was hugging me, her perfume overwhelming, her lips close to my ear. "Still pregnant?" I pulled back. "Yes." "Well, let's not mention it today. This is about Grandma and Grandpa's anniversary, not your situation." My situation? like my pregnancy was some kind of scandal instead of a life growing inside me, a life I'd cried happy tears over despite not planning it, a life that made me feel hopeful for the first time since my divorce. But what my 7-year-old son did next would turn this family tragedy into a criminal investigation that would put my own sister behind bars. Though standing there in that moment, watching Carol smile her perfect smile while relatives started gathering around, I had no idea that in 3 hours I'd be bleeding on the ground while my family celebrated my loss, or that my quiet little boy would become the bravest person under that tent. The reunion was about to begin, and with it, the last day I'd ever call these people my family, at least most of them. The Parker family farm stretched across 40 acres of Tennessee countryside, with the main house sitting like a white crown jewel at the center. My grandparents had bought it in 1974 with nothing but hope and a small loan from the bank. Now it was worth millions, though they'd never sell. This land was meant for family, they said. Family above everything. That motto was painted on a wooden sign hanging from the main tent, right above where I was arranging my pies. "Those look amazing, Bethany." My cousin James appeared beside me, wearing scrubs even though he wasn't working. He was a nurse at Vanderbilt and never let anyone forget it. Grandma's recipe. With a few tweaks, added bourbon to the chocolate one. Living dangerously. You know how Aunt Patricia feels about alcohol in desserts. Aunt Patricia was my mother's sister, somehow even more judgmental if that was possible. I spotted her across the tent, already whispering to her daughter while looking in my direction. The Parker women had a gift for making you feel watched without ever making direct eye contact. Wyatt tugged on my dress. "Mom, can I go look at Grandpa Tom's horses?" "After we finish setting up, baby." "I can take him," James offered, but I shook my head. Something about today made me want to keep Wyatt close. Maybe it was the way Carol kept circling back to our table, commenting on everything from the placement of the pies to the paper plates I'd brought. "Paper plates for dessert, Bethany?" "I brought real china. It's in my car if you want to switch them out." "Paper's fine, Carol." "If you say so. Oh, did you see Mom yet? She's been asking about you." That was a lie. Diane Parker didn't ask about me unless she needed something done or wanted to express disappointment. I found her holding court near the beverage station, surrounded by her church friends, all wearing variations of the same pastel sundress. "There she is," my mother announced, not quite warm enough to be welcoming. "Ladies, you remember my daughter Bethany. She's the one who makes those pies everyone loves. Not my daughter, the medical billing specialist, or my daughter who's raising an amazing kid on her own, just the one who makes pies. Hi, Mom. The place looks beautiful." Carol hired the decorators. Aren't they wonderful? She has such an eye for these things. Speaking of which, Bethany, could you help move some chairs? The catering staff Carol hired will need more room for the buffet. I spent the next hour moving furniture while Carol supervised, occasionally calling out corrections. "Not there, Bethany. That'll block the flow of traffic. Think about how people move through spaces. I deal with this all the time in my staging work." The relatives kept arriving, my father's brothers with their loud voices and beer bellies, talking about football and farm equipment. My mother's side with their careful smiles and measuring eyes, cataloging who'd gained weight, who looked tired, whose children were misbehaving. Wyatt stayed close, helping when he could, reading his book when he couldn't. "Your boy's quiet," observed Uncle Dennis, my father's oldest brother. "Needs to toughen up. Boys that age should be running wild, not reading books about dinosaurs." "He's perfect the way he is," I said, sharper than intended. No offense meant. Just saying what? Everyone's thinking. Kid needs a father figure. His father sees him every other weekend. Another lie. His father hadn't shown up for his last 4 scheduled visits. That's when Carol appeared with 2 glasses of lemonade, her smile bright as the afternoon sun. "You look exhausted, sis. Here, I made this from Grandma's special recipe. You remember, the one with her secret ingredient?" The glass was cold, beaded with condensation. It looked perfect, garnished with fresh mint from my mother's garden. Carol watched as I took it, something flickering in her eyes that I couldn't quite read. "Thanks. Drink up. You'll need the energy. Oh, and Bethany, I heard about your promotion at work. Senior billing specialist, right? That must come with what, a 3% raise? 5%, actually. Every little bit helps, I suppose, especially with another mouth to feed. She said it quietly, so only I could hear, then walked away to greet our grandparents who'd just emerged from the house. They were the reason we were all here, 50 years of marriage worth celebrating. Grandpa Tom still stood tall at 80, while Grandma June used her walker but refused any other help. I drank the lemonade in 3 long gulps. It was sweeter than I remembered Grandma's recipe being, with an odd aftertaste I couldn't place. But the cold felt good against the heat, and I had too much to do to worry about Carol's cooking skills. That decision would haunt me for the rest of my life. The lemonade had been gone for 30 minutes when the first cramp hit. I was standing by the gift table, listening to Grandma June tell the story of how she met Grandpa Tom at a church social in 1974, when my stomach clenched like a fist. I pressed my hand against my abdomen, trying to be subtle about it. "You all right, dear?" Grandma June asked, her cloudy eyes still sharp enough to catch my wince. "Just the heat, Grandma. I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. The second cramp came 5 minutes later, while I was helping serve pulled pork to a line of cousins. This one was different, lower, sharper, like someone was twisting a knife in my belly. I put down the serving spoon and gripped the edge of the table. "Mom?" Wyatt appeared beside me, his book tucked under his arm. "You look sick." "I just need to use the bathroom, baby. Stay here with Cousin James." The walk to the house felt like a mile. Each step brought another wave of pain, stronger than the last. My legs were shaking by the time I reached the downstairs bathroom. That's when I saw it. Blood. Not much at first, just a spot, but I knew. God help me, I knew what was happening. "No, no, no," I whispered, pressing toilet paper against myself, trying to stop what couldn't be stopped. "Please, not now. Not here." 10 weeks. I'd made it 10 weeks. I'd already picked out names, already imagined Wyatt as a big brother, already started putting away $20 a week for baby supplies. The blood kept coming, soaking. Through everything, and with it, my hope dissolved like sugar in rain. I don't remember walking back to the tent. I just remember suddenly being there, my yellow sundress stained dark, my legs barely holding me up. The chatter of 150 relatives sounded like ocean waves, distant and meaningless. I collapsed into the nearest chair, the plastic creaking under my weight. "Oh my God," Carol's voice cut through everything, loud and theatrical. "Bethany, are you having a miscarriage?" Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. My mother's friends put down their sweet tea. Uncle Dennis stopped mid-story about his new tractor. Even the kids stopped running around. 150 pairs of eyes focused on me and the spreading stain on my dress. "Thank God," Carol continued, her voice carrying across the silent tent. "She would have ruined another innocent life. She can barely handle Wyatt." The words hit harder than the physical pain. I looked up at my sister, standing there in her perfect dress with her perfect hair, and saw something in her face I'd never noticed before. It wasn't concern or sympathy, it was satisfaction. "Carol," someone gasped, but she wasn't done. "What? We're all thinking it. She's divorced, working a dead-end job, can barely afford her apartment. What business does she have bringing another child into that mess?" Aunt Patricia stepped forward, nodding slowly. "Some people aren't meant to have more children. It's nature's way of preventing suffering." "Exactly," Uncle Dennis added, taking a long drink of his beer. "At least it happened now before the kid suffered. Growing up without a father, watching his mother struggle. This is a blessing in disguise." My mother approached slowly, her church friends flanking her like pastel-dressed bodyguards. She looked at the blood on my dress with the same expression she'd had when I told her about the divorce. Disappointed but not surprised. "Carol's right," she said, each word precise and cutting. "Some women shouldn't reproduce. You've already proven you can't keep a marriage together. You can't provide a stable home. Maybe this is God's way of telling you to focus on the child you already have." "Mom," I managed to whisper, tears streaming down my face. "I wanted this baby. I've been taking vitamins, doing everything right." "Sometimes right isn't enough, Bethany. Sometimes we have to accept our limitations." My father stood near the drinks table, studying his shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. True to form, he said nothing, while his wife and eldest daughter dissected my worth as a mother, as a woman, as a human being. "This is probably for the best," Carol announced to the gathered crowd. "My sister has enough on her plate. She doesn't need another burden." Burden. My baby was a burden. I pressed my hands against my stomach, feeling the life drain out of me while my family discussed it like weather or sports scores. The pain wasn't just physical anymore. It was something deeper, something that would never fully heal. "At least she won't need to ask us for more money," someone whispered. "Poor Wyatt won't have to share his mother's attention," another added. "Maybe now she can get her life together," a third voice chimed in. They stood around me in a circle, these people who shared my blood, discussing my loss like it was community entertainment. Not one person knelt beside me. Not one person offered comfort. Not one person told them to stop, except for Wyatt. My 7-year-old son stood frozen by the dessert table, his dinosaur book dropped on the ground, watching his mother bleed and cry while his family celebrated her loss. His small hands were clenched into fists, and behind his glasses his eyes moved from person to person, taking in every cruel word, every cold face, every moment of this horror show. And he remembered something. Something he'd seen just an hour ago. Something about Aunt Carol and a small bottle in his mother's purse. While the adults continued their cruel commentary, Wyatt stood perfectly still, his mind racing faster than it ever had before. He remembered exactly what he'd seen an hour ago when he'd come back to get his dinosaur book from our car. Aunt Carol had been standing by the dessert table where Mom's purse was sitting. She'd looked around nervously, then pulled something small from her designer bag, a brown prescription bottle. She'd opened Mom's purse, did something quick with her hands near Mom's water bottle, then walked away fast. At 7 years old, Wyatt understood medicine was serious. His dad took pills for his back. His friend Tommy took medicine for allergies. But medicine was supposed to help people, and you weren't supposed to touch other people's things without permission. Aunt Carol had broken both rules. "Someone should call an ambulance," Cousin James finally said, the first hint of actual concern from anyone. "She doesn't need an ambulance for a miscarriage," Carol snapped. "She just needs to clean herself up and pull herself together. Always so dramatic, my sister." That's when Wyatt made his decision. He walked slowly toward Carol's designer handbag, the white leather one with gold clasps that she'd left on the gift table. Nobody noticed him. They were all too busy discussing whether I deserved this loss because of my divorce or my financial situation. Carol's bag was heavy and smelled like expensive perfume. Wyatt opened it carefully, his small fingers searching through lipsticks and credit cards and real estate business cards. Then in the inside zipper pocket, he found it, the brown prescription bottle he'd seen earlier. The label had big words he sounded out slowly in his head. "Misoprostol." He didn't know what it meant, but he could read the warning label clearly enough. "May cause severe cramping and bleeding. Do not take if pregnant." Pregnant. His mom was pregnant, or had been. Wyatt looked back at me, slumped in the chair, blood on my dress, tears on my face, surrounded by family who seemed happy about my pain. Then he looked at Carol, who was now telling Aunt Patricia how this would be a good wake-up call for me to get my life together. He put the bottle in his pocket and walked back through the crowd of relatives. His steps were determined, nothing like the shy boy who usually hid behind his books. He moved past Uncle Dennis, around Grandma Diane's church friends, through the cluster of second cousins recording everything on their phones. "Mommy," he said, reaching my chair. His voice was quiet, meant just for me. "I need to tell you something." I could barely focus through the pain and humiliation, but I tried to look at my son. "Not now, baby. It's important." He turned to face Carol, his small body blocking her from my view. "It's about what Aunt Carol did." "What are you talking about?" Carol's voice had an edge now, sharp and warning. Wyatt didn't back down. He pulled the prescription bottle from his pocket and held it up high enough for everyone to see. His voice was clear and steady, nothing like his usual quiet mumble. "Aunt Carol, should I tell everyone what you put in Mommy's drink?" The tent went completely silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. "I saw you with this bottle by her purse." Wyatt continued, each word careful and clear. You put something in the lemonade when you thought nobody was looking. Then you gave it to Mommy and watched her drink it all. Carol's perfect face went white. That's my medication. Give it back right now. Why was your medication in Mommy's drink? It wasn't. You're confused. Children make up stories all the time. Wyatt stood straighter, like he'd seen lawyers do on TV shows. I don't make up stories. I saw you. You looked around first to make sure nobody was watching, but I was behind the car getting my book. I saw everything. The relatives started murmuring, shifting uncomfortably. This wasn't the drama they'd signed up for. This was something else, something darker. Let me see that bottle, Cousin James said, stepping forward with his nurse's authority. Don't touch it! Carol lunged forward, but Wyatt stepped back, still holding the bottle high. Why? Wyatt asked. If it's just your medication, why are you so scared? My mother finally spoke, her voice uncertain for the first time all day. Carol, what is that child talking about? He's lying. He's always been a weird kid, too quiet, too watching. He's making this up for attention. But Wyatt wasn't done. He looked directly at his aunt, this woman who'd just called my baby a burden, and asked the question that would change everything. Then why did you hide the bottle in your purse? And why did you throw the cap in the trash can by the parking lot? I saw that too. If it was your medicine and you needed it, why didn't you keep it? Carol's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The crowd pressed closer. No longer gossiping, but genuinely concerned. My father finally looked up from his shoes. My mother stepped away from Carol, confusion replacing her usual certainty. And I sat there, blood still seeping through my dress, watching my 7-year-old son dismantle my sister's lies with the simple weapon of truth. Cousin James snatched the bottle from Wyatt's hand before Carol could reach it. His face changed as he read the label, all the color draining away like water from a sink. He was a cardiac nurse, but he knew enough about medications to understand what he was holding. This is misoprostol, he announced, his voice hollow with shock. It's used to induce miscarriages. The tent erupted. Voices overlapped in confusion and disbelief while Carol stood frozen, her perfect composure finally cracking. I watched her through my tears and pain, seeing my sister clearly for the first time in my life. Let me see that. Dr. Reynolds, a family friend and retired physician, took the bottle from James. He studied it carefully, then looked at Carol with disgust. This is a prescription medication. Carol Parker, whose name is on this bottle, prescribed 2 weeks ago. You poisoned me? My voice came out broken, barely a whisper, but in the sudden silence, everyone heard it. You killed my baby? Carol's face twisted into something ugly, something I'd never seen before. You don't deserve another child. You're a failure, Bethany, a complete failure. So you murdered her baby? Grandma June's voice cut through the chaos. She'd been quiet until now, but her words carried the weight of matriarchal authority. You gave her medication to cause a miscarriage? She doesn't understand, Carol said, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch. None of you understand what it's like watching her fail upward while I do everything right. Fail upward. I tried to stand, but couldn't, the pain keeping me down. Carol, I'm barely surviving. Exactly. And yet Mom and Dad still help you. Grandma left you her ring. Everyone feels sorry for poor Bethany with her broken marriage and her struggles. Do you know what I've been through? My mother stepped forward. Carol, what did you do? What you should have done. Protected the family from another embarrassment. Carol was screaming now, her perfect hair coming undone. 5 years, Mom. 5 years of IVF treatments, 12 rounds, $300,000. My body poked and prodded and pumped full of hormones, and nothing. She spun to face me, mascara running down her cheeks. And then you get pregnant by accident? Not even trying? Not even wanting it? I wanted my baby, I sobbed. I wanted this baby more than anything. No, you don't get to have everything. You got Grandma's love, you got the family sympathy, you get to play the victim while I'm the one who has to be perfect all the time. So you killed an innocent child? My father's voice boomed across the tent. Russell Parker. who hadn't raised his voice in 20 years, was shouting, "You murdered your own niece or nephew out of jealousy." It wasn't murder, it was mercy. That baby would have grown up in poverty with a mother who can't even keep a husband. "Call 911, Dr. Reynolds commanded. "Now, this is attempted murder. She gave a pregnant woman an abortifacient without her knowledge or consent." "No!" Carol tried to run, but Uncle Dennis and 2 other relatives blocked her path. "You don't understand. I was doing the right thing." "You put 4 pills in her lemonade," Wyatt said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "I watched you crush them with the back of a spoon. You counted them twice to make sure." "You little brat!" Carol lunged at Wyatt, but James caught her arms. "This is your fault. If you'd kept your mouth shut." "Carol Ann Parker." My mother's voice was a whip crack. "You fed my daughter abortion pills?" "Your daughter? Your daughter?" Carol laughed bitterly. "Since when is she your daughter?" "All I've heard for 2 years is how Bethany disappointed you, embarrassed you, failed you. You said it yourself not 10 minutes ago. Some women shouldn't reproduce." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. The church friends stepped back from her like shame was contagious. "I didn't mean for you to poison her, didn't you? Every word you've said about her, every comparison, every disappointed look. You created this, Mother. You made me believe I had to be perfect and she had to be nothing." Police sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Someone had called while we were all frozen in this horrible tableau. Carol heard them too, and made one last desperate attempt to break free, but there were too many hands holding her now. "Everything I did was for this family," she said, looking around at the relatives who'd been so quick to judge me minutes ago. "All of you were thinking it. I just did something about it." "You're insane," Aunt Patricia whispered. "Am I? Who called her baby a burden? Who said it was for the best? Who stood there while she bled and said God was preventing another mistake?" The relatives couldn't meet her eyes. They'd all said something cruel, something unforgivable, and now their words hung in the air like poison gas. When the police arrived, Carol didn't resist. She walked to the patrol car with her head high, still convinced she'd done the right thing. But just before they put her in, she turned back to look at me. "I'm the one who deserved a baby," she said. "Not you. Never you." They drove away with my sister in handcuffs, leaving 150 relatives standing in stunned silence under a tent that still had "family above everything" hanging from its center beam. The hospital confirmed what we already knew. The miscarriage was caused by misoprostol, and the dose Carol had given me could have killed me too. 4 crushed pills in a single drink, enough to guarantee I'd lose my baby, but also enough to cause hemorrhaging that required 2 blood transfusions. If Wyatt hadn't spoken up when he did, if the ambulance had been even 10 minutes later, I might not be here to tell this story. Carol pleaded guilty to assault with a deadly weapon and poisoning. Her lawyer tried to argue for temporary insanity brought on by fertility treatment stress, but the prosecutor had Wyatt's testimony, the prescription records showing she'd lied to get the medication, and text messages she'd sent to a friend saying she was going to fix the Bethany problem once and for all. She got 7 years in state prison. The real estate agency fired her the day after her arrest. Her husband filed for divorce before the trial even started. The perfect life she'd built crumbled in less than a month, and unlike my struggles, nobody offered her sympathy or support. My mother came to the hospital while I was recovering. She stood in the doorway for 5 minutes before speaking. "I created a monster," she finally said. "I spent so many years comparing you two, making her feel like she had to be perfect, and making you feel like nothing you did was enough. I'm the one who should be in prison." "You didn't put the pills in my drink, Mom." "No, but I created the environment where she thought it was acceptable. Every cruel word I said about your pregnancy, every time I called you a disappointment, I gave her permission to take it further." She started therapy after that, we both did. Family therapy every Wednesday at 3 p.m., trying to untangle 30 years of toxic dynamics. My father started coming too, finally finding his voice after decades of silence. He told me he'd been proud of me all along, but was too cowardly to stand up to my mother's criticism. "I failed you as a father," he said during one session. "I let my fear of confrontation hurt my daughter. That ends now." The extended family fractured after the reunion. Some relatives couldn't face what they'd said that day. how they'd stood around my miscarriage like vultures celebrating roadkill. Aunt Patricia sent a letter of apology, but never showed her face again. Uncle Dennis transferred his guilt into anger at Carol, as if hating her loud enough could erase his own cruel words. But some surprised me. Cousin James visited every week, bringing medical journals about recovering from trauma. My grandparents disowned Carol completely and changed their will to ensure everything went to Wyatt's education. Even some of my mother's church friends reached out, admitting they'd been horrible and asking for forgiveness. 6 months after the reunion, we held a memorial service for the baby. Just 20 people came, the ones who'd earned the right to grieve with us. Wyatt read a poem he'd written about the sibling he'd never meet but would always love. We planted a small cherry tree in my backyard, something beautiful growing from something horrible. "Mom," Wyatt asked that day, "do you think the baby knows I tried to save them?" "I think the baby knows you're the bravest person in our entire family," I told him. "You stood up when adults stayed silent. You told the truth when everyone wanted to believe a lie. I just didn't want them to hurt you anymore." That's the thing about truth. Sometimes it comes from the smallest voices, the ones we train to be quiet and polite. My 7-year-old son taught 150 adults that family isn't about blood or reunions or keeping secrets. It's about protecting the people you love, even when the whole world is against them. Carol will be eligible for parole in 4 years. She's sent 17 letters from prison, all unopened, all returned. My mother wanted me to read them, said Carol was sick and deserved forgiveness. But forgiveness isn't owed to someone who murdered your child out of jealousy. Some actions break bonds that can never be repaired. We don't have family reunions at the farm anymore. Instead, our smaller group meets at my apartment, where truth matters more than reputation, and love isn't conditional on success. Wyatt's in middle school now, still quiet, still observant, still the bravest person I know. He wants to be a detective when he grows up, says he's good at seeing what people try to hide. The last time someone asked about Carol, Wyatt said something that stopped everyone cold. "She's not our family anymore. Family doesn't poison each other. Family speaks up when someone's being hurt. We learned that the hard way, but at least we learned. Some lessons come at prices too high to calculate. I lost a baby, but I gained the truth about who really loves us. That's not a trade I'd ever make willingly, but it's the reality we live with now. Every cherry blossom that blooms in our backyard reminds us that beauty can grow from the darkest soil, but only when you're brave enough to plant truth in it. If you've made it this far in our story, thank you for listening. Sometimes the most important stories are the hardest to tell. If this video resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below about a time when someone unexpected stood up for you, because those are the moments that restore faith in humanity. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real, raw stories about families, truth, and the courage it takes to break toxic cycles. Your support helps us tell these stories that need to be heard.